What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Review for the Promised Neverland Season 2. This is episode 4. With me, as always, I have Bluespate.
Well, so far as I know, this episode just completely goes in a new direction based on people who haven't... based on people who...
Okay, so I should say I am someone who's read the manga. I can tell you this episode... it diverges quite a bit from the source material in a lot of ways. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing still remains to be seen. I see a lot of people making a lot of assumptions and jumping to conclusions because this is, anime original stuff and it's not really adapting some parts of the manga. I think, in my opinion, I think people are really kind of, that they're, like I said, they're jumping to conclusions because we haven't seen, just because we haven't seen certain characters or something happening with the show yet does not necessarily mean that it's been cut out entirely. It could still happen. It just might happen in a different way. I say we wait until the entire season is over before we make those conclusions. But that's all I'm going to say about that because I have seen people kind of say the show's terrible now because it's going in a new direction, but and people were complaining about the manga because in the manga it goes downhill after, I would say, the Goldie Pond arc, which is the arc that I thought they were going to cover, but it's still kind of up in the air if they're actually still going to cover that or not. That's the only thing I'm kind of concerned about. But I don't really mind that they're kind of going in a different direction because, like I said, the manga does kind of end on a fairly disappointing note and it kind of goes downhill. So maybe this is I guess the optimistic view of this would be maybe this is a chance for them to, or for the original writer for the manga to course correct, because as we know, the writer for the manga is actually working closely with the studio with this season. So maybe he, or I think it's a woman, so maybe she wants to, fix some of the stuff that people were complaining about with the manga with the anime. So I did like some of the different some of the choices some of the new stuff they have in this episode, but we'll get to that.
It's of course the writer the writer is confirmed to be female, but it's just but overall this episode picks up where the last episode left off. Emma gets this recorded message from William Minerva. However, it's not William Minerva. I think there was I forgot the name already.
James Ratchery.
James Ratchery, and just telling him that he used to work at the farm, but he felt like he couldn't continue on with everything that's going on to the other kids being shipped off and being sent to the demons. So he decided to betray them and then help other children who want to escape the village by planting all of these hidden messages around libraries or different farms.
Basically William Minerva was a persona he created.
And of course we also see the other kids looking into that same room with help scribbled all over the walls, and then they find a diary on the ground that I think at quick glance I think I saw something that says I can't take this anymore, or I can't go on like this, or something. It goes along those lines, but I guess something happened in that sanctuary that they're currently living in. But pretty much they also get a message to write down another code called Future, and then as soon as they write that down on the pen, they find another set of coordinates in which they can at least get to the human world. At least that's what they're assuming that is.
I think this, I want to say this could potentially be something different, because I don't think it's until later on when this they get directions to the human. I could be wrong, but I think this is something else they might be putting in kind of early with in the storyline. I didn't necessarily remember that part, but I kind of hope that's not where it's headed. Like I said, I hope they are eventually going to get to the Goldie Pond arc I was talking about, because that is technically what's supposed to happen next. But I guess we'll see with that. But yeah, majority of the episode after this, it's kind of just is a lot of them hanging around the sanctuary, or the sanctuary, the shelter.
Yeah, and then hunting for food, and also getting those slimy fishes just sitting on trees, and then cooking them and eating them as well. But then shortly afterwards, that's where things just completely go in a different direction at that point.
I will say, when they were hanging around the sanctuary so much, I was starting to get concerned, because I'm just like, they seem to be spending a lot of time here, because in the manga they did spend a lot of time there, but they didn't spend too long there, and I was starting to lose hope, because I was expecting a certain character to show up. I'll just go ahead and say the character's name is Yugo. He's basically one of the children who escaped from a farm, and he has to do with the Goldie Pond arc that they should be getting into. He escaped from the farm, and he found the shelter, and he'd been living there for years, and he's like a young adult now. And he's like pretty much one of the first things they come across when they go into the shelter. So after the last episode, I was like, well, maybe he's just kind of hiding somewhere and they'll eventually find him. But after they kind of went through this montage of them living there, and there's no sign of Yugo, I was just like, is he not going to be in this season? Did they just cut him out completely? But it seems like at least he could still be in the season, but maybe he'll just show up in a different way. Maybe for whatever reason he's just not in the shelter, which is still kind of weird, because that, like I said, that's where he escapes to after him and some of his friends escaping from the farm. So him not being there is a little bit weird. That was kind of the first sign where I'm like, okay, this seems to be we already had some signs in the first couple episodes that things seem to be going in a little bit of a different direction, but nothing too substantial. But this episode kind of even before the whole thing with the near the end of the episode happens, they seemed like they were really kind of there was some new stuff, but I guess we should go ahead and talk about it. There's some scenes where we see that they cut to where they show a prisoner, and if you remember the grandmother, I think it was from the first season, and one of the head demons, I guess, and they're looking in on the cell, and it's a woman in there. We already know who it is. I mean, you see her face. It's Isabella. It's just her hair's down. Mm-hmm. But we see her there, and they're talking about basically how they're disappointed with her and all this. But so we see a few scenes like that. And one of the scenes, her and the demon go into the cell, and the demon has a flower or something, and they basically, was it a flower? It's the same flower they implant into their heart and then suck the blood out. Yeah.
But we find out that they're giving her an ultimatum. So we also find out that the kids at that same farm got taken away as well, but they're guess they're okay safely, but we don't know what exactly is going on with them.
Okay. This is another fairly substantial change, I would say, because we don't know anything as far as I know. Actually, we kind of do. There are some skits in the manga with Phil, where it shows him basically hanging out at the house, and he's acting everything's kind of back to normal essentially. That's the only indication of what we know of what's going on at the Gracefield house at this part in the manga. There's really nothing else. So when I saw these scenes, I was kind of shocked, and when they were talking they took all the kids away, I'm it seemed definitely seemed like they were going in a new direction with this. The demon talks to her, and they're basically giving her another chance to basically redeem herself by going after the kids and capturing them. And then the demon whispers something to her that I guess helps to really convince her to do it. I'm gonna go ahead and assume what the demon whispered to her was we'll free you and your son, basically. Which of course, as we know from last season, is her biological son is Ray.
I think that would be the most obvious thing that that the demon would offer her. And I guess, well, yeah, I guess that would be something that she would accept, because not only just that, it's like, yeah, give her freedom and, you know, have her get away from all this, including removing.
So basically, like, her and Ray would be spared.
Yeah.
But everybody else would be sacrificed, basically, and get eaten.
Yeah, it's like now I'm just curious in like where that's gonna go now, because I never heard of this happening.
I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, they're really ballsy for going this direction, because this does not happen as far as I know from the manga. This is we actually get introduced to a new villain that with the new arc they're going into. So I'm kind of wondering, like, if they're still going to introduce this villain, or if they're going to just have Isabella be the villain again in this season, where she's like chasing after them, or if they're just going to have her as the villain as well as this new villain from the manga. If they actually have him in this season at all, which I'm still concerned about, because obviously, like I said, we do not see Yugo at all in this episode. So we transition back to the shelter, and things kind of just all of a sudden take a turn, because they end up getting there's like an explosion, and then this just group of guys with guns and like tactical gear invade the sanctuary. And I guess, you can assume these guys are basically of course looking for the children, trying to recapture them. This is something else that they took from the manga and basically rearranged. This is not supposed to happen until much later on in the story. Basically the Ratchery clan, not too much of a spoiler, James Ratchery, the guy who's portrayed, was trying to say he's William Minerva, has a brother who is, he's kind of working with the demons, and he's the one who's trying to capture all the children. He finally finds the sanctuary, he invades the sanctuary, and they fight him and his team off. And it's kind of like, it seems like they kind of took that scene and put it here, except there's no James Ratchery, or not James, but James Ratchery's brother, at least. Like, he's not in this at all. So I'm not really sure, because he's not with the assault squad or whatever. It's just these random guys that are like trying to find the kids.
Yeah, and so they managed to to get away from like all the mercenaries. But of course, like they go through like what was it, that hidden passageway behind the piano. But of course, one of the other mercenaries managed to find him in the cave, and then of course he reveals like there's always like two different exits or entrances like in these types of shelters, which kind of makes sense. But they managed like to get away with from the other guy after they distracted him a bit. So they managed to go outside, but then somehow most of them ended up getting captured while Emma and Ray are trying to make a run for it. And then they get to the forest, and then of course they manage to get away from them again after like that huge monster, forest monster that's been chasing them before, end up like eating up all the the mercenaries that were chasing them.
Well, good thing the kids are crack shots, because they shoot the monster, and they end up shooting the monster, and then I think it was Emma shoots him in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Emma, but I think it was someone else.
Oh yeah, one of them shoots him in the eye, and that's I forget how this ends. Does it bring the monster down, or they?
No, I think the monster's still alive and still maybe trying to chase him. That's where like they run back into the forest, and that's where the episode ends. Well, although technically that the Isabella stuff was the last part we saw, but it's
right.
Yeah, that's where the episode ends off, and now I'm just curious, like, where is the story going now? Because this is like the first time I've ever heard of something like this happening.
Oh, we've heard of it happening before.
But yeah, it's just not in this way from what I heard other people. Who've read.
Of course, people will bring up the obvious example of like Tokyo Ghoul Rude, but like I said, Rude was kind of just a different situation, because Studio Pierrot just
they didn't
like Sue Ishida, like
they didn't finish the manga at the time, right?
Well, he didn't finish them. Well, actually, no. Sue Ishida had like an outline for something different he wanted to do with season 2 of Tokyo Ghoul, And he gave it the outlines to Studio Pro, but they basically like trashed everything apparently and just did their own thing with it. So that's why it ended up being as terrible as it was. As far as I know, like here, the manga writer is actually working with the studio, and she's the one who's behind a lot of the story decisions. I mean, as far as I know, they're not like, trashing, what she's given them or what she's telling them to do or anything like that. So I don't think it's really like the same situation here, at least not as far as I'm aware. So I guess, this could go one of the two ways. I still think they can come across Goldie Pond and they could still technically like do the Goldie Pond arc because we're only on episode 4. Or this could just go in a radically new direction and they could completely ignore the Goldie Pond arc and do just something completely different, which either one I'm just very cautiously optimistic at this point because I feel like it's a good and the bad thing, because it's good because, like I said, the manga does kind of go downhill, but that's not until like later on. The Goldie Pond arc is still decent, but I mean, the new stuff we get could be as good as that. I think people are just because of usually things going in like an anime only direction is not really seen as good. But I think this is maybe an exception because the person behind the manga is actually involved. So maybe we'll actually get something good out of it. Maybe they want to, fix the mistakes they made with the manga, and maybe they'll do that. It could go, like I said, it could go either one of two ways. It could be good or it could be absolutely terrible, because I don't really know if there's really going to be much of an in-between there because of how much stuff they're changing. So I will say I'm definitely on board with everybody. I'm concerned, but at the same time, I want to remain optimistic because, like I said, it could be a chance to redeem some of the problems that the manga had and, try to fix a lot of those issues. So maybe that's where they're going with the plot. But.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see from where it goes from here. But I'm just it's something that I've never heard about this happening before. I mean, we've seen like other animes like go in a different direction, but the only difference is like the reason why they went in a completely different direction was that their manga counterparts,
source material.
their original source material wasn't finished at the time. Well, the only difference here is like the manga is technically finished, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's finished.
Yeah. So, and then of course the original writer is like supervising this. So there could be a reason why there's going to be a story change for this. Maybe the writer's not satisfied of what she made initially, so she's going to try to maybe.
Well, and it's also that maybe she's aware of the fan reaction to it, and she's aware that people aren't really satisfied with how it turned out.
Yeah, but I'm curious if like why make this change like so soon before this Goldie Pond arc that you've mentioned.
Well, like I said, it still could go. They still could go in that direction, and that arc still could happen, maybe just in a different way. But like I said, they could be doing something totally new. Which I'm open to either one. I guess it just depends, like if the new stuff is actually good. And like I said, the Goldie Pond arc was actually a good arc, and I think a lot of people, even if it does go in a direction that's actually good, like I think people still are going to be disappointed that they didn't actually get to see that animated. So I think either way, I think people are still going to be disappointed with it. But I want to try to remain optimistic about it because, like I said, people I think if they stayed totally faithful to the manga, people would still be disappointed because, like I said, with what happens with the manga, it eventually goes downhill after a while. So I think it would, it's honestly kind of a good thing they try to change some stuff up with the anime.
Yeah.
Maybe the anime is just a chance to kind of redeem the story in a way.
We'll have to see where it goes from here, and whether I don't know how the writer is going to end up. I guess like where the story's going to go from here. Like I'm not. I'm not too sure. I mean, I'm just mildly
yeah,
optimistic.
I'm pretty sure the manga readers don't know either. Like, pretty much the anime onlys and the manga readers are pretty much now in the same boat.
Yeah,
it's weird because now they had promised Neverland is in the same situation as like Higurashi Go, where like all the people who read the visual novel had pretty much have no idea what's going on. The same way, like,
it's like we usually have like some shaky expectations on storylines that deviate from its source material, because they normally don't like go in a good direction unless unless something surprises us near the end.
Yeah. But like I said, I'm going to try to remain optimistic about it. Hopefully this ends up going in an interesting new direction, or maybe it will go in a similar direction as the manga, but with some fairly significant changes here and there. Honestly, like, I think, in my opinion, with the Goldie Pond arc, it should remain mostly the same, but maybe, they'll change up some stuff. But if they ever do it, have other seasons and they adapt the rest of the manga, I do think it should definitely go into some new direction where they try to, fix some stuff. That would be the best way to go about it, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
That's where they're going with this. So I don't really have anything else to say about it. Like, in a way, I like this because it's going to give us some, people who are manga readers something, kind of unexpected with the anime. But at the same time, there is definitely, I do agree, there's reason to at least kind of be worried about it, because it's just unpredictable at this point. What's going to happen really with the plot?
Yeah, I mean,
I will say, like, I do like that they're giving Isabella giving her something to do, because that was like one of the things when I was reading the manga. I was like, where is Isabella? Like, we don't know what's going on with her. But in the anime, they're actually like, bringing her back into, actually bringing her back into the plot. So I think that's...
I think this... Okay, if I were to guess, for the entirety of this season, which is going to be like 11 episodes altogether, I'm going to assume that this is going to mostly focus on, the storyline with Isabella trying to find these kids again. And then maybe, just maybe, they'll go into the Goldie Pond arc by season 3.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe. I think people will definitely just be disappointed if they actually don't end up covering the Goldie Pond arc, but I guess we'll just have to see if if they do go through with a new plot line, if it'll actually be interesting enough for people to look past the fact that they did not adapt the Goldie Pond arc and kind of go with like a new direction with the plot.
I mean, that has to be my guess at this point, because if I mean, you would have to wonder how long the Goldie Pond arc is going to be, just based on like how many episodes.
It's not that long. It's like a few volumes of manga.
Yeah, but if they're gonna focus on like Isabella being one of the main characters again, that would have to take up like the majority of the season at this point.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption is that it could just be that maybe she does stuff in the background, possibly, like while the Goldie Pond arc is happening. They kind of like maybe transition between like whatever she's up to and what's going on with the Goldie Pond arc. That could be how they do it.
Yeah.
I think that would be the best way to go about it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, but like we'll probably have to see from here. I mean, we just don't know for sure what they're going to do for the rest of the storyline now.
Yeah. Well, this episode was definitely a really big surprise for me as someone who's a manga reader. I just was like, kind of had my mouth open at some points, because I genuinely did not expect them to do certain things that they did. So I guess we'll just have to see if that's for the best or not. But other than that, I don't really have too much else to say. I do hope that Yugo shows up eventually, because he is actually a good character, and I'm a little bit disappointed he actually has not shown up at all. Maybe they'll just have him, give him something else to do and have him show up in a different way. I kind of hope that's what they're going to do here, because I think some people pointed out too that they did see like something in the opening that implies that he will show up eventually, I suppose. So maybe there's still hope that he will show up. But yeah, I don't have really too much else to say about this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
No, not really. I mean, we'll have to see where that goes from here. I mean, I am interested in like where this is going, but like I am a bit cautiously optimistic now that they're now that they're supposedly deviating from like its original storyline, or its original storyline in terms of where the plot is right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. But yeah, that all being said, until next Thursday, we will see you all next time.